Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Higher Estate. My name is Dr. Ira Price, and this is where we discuss all things related to cannabis, and we bridge the gap between the medical world and the lifestyle world. I have an amazing show today. We have an awesome guest, a good friend of mine from California. His name is Brian Chaplin. Hey, Brian.
Hey, Dr. Ira. Good to be here, my friend.
Thanks so much for coming on, and we're going to have a great chat. And I miss you, bro. And I know we've had some really good talks in the past, and you're doing some really cool things, and you've helped a lot of people. And one of my lines, guys, that I've used forever, as below is above, that comes from this man right here. And I'm excited to talk about all those things, the plant itself, the where you've come from, and how you got into all of this, and what's happening with Medicine Box. And we'll get into that. But we also have the beautiful Janelle, who's here. What's up, Janelle?
Hey.
This woman is like one of the most intelligent humans I know, and it's just awesome. How are you?
I am good. No complaints.
How was your week? Yeah, the weather sucks. We had one day of, I'm kind of jealous because this guy Brian is sitting in Lake Tahoe. He's like, oh, I'm staring at the Lake Tahoe right now. Oh, Jesus.
No complaints. No complaints here in North Lake Tahoe. Whether I'm quarantining or I'm not quarantining, Lake Tahoe is a magical place to be. So,
has your life changed at all?
I keep saying I have a 3rd-degree black belt in social distancing, and there hasn't been much change because I've just rolled right into my normal life. I'm like, whoa, normal life is quarantine. But really, what has changed a lot is I've built up a lot more gratitude for where I live. I consistently every day I cheers the lake with my coffee, and I say I'm so grateful for you and grateful to be able to live here, because there's a lot of people, San Francisco, LA, Toronto, New York City, Boston, where my sister is, that don't have the luxury of being able to step out in nature and be quarantined in a beautiful place because they're in a city. So very grateful to be here. So that's what's really changed, and a lot of
gratitude.
Good work. Yeah, gratitude.
Well, that's pretty cool because
of gratitude.
Right now all I have is rain, and I'm looking out the window now. I feel like we should compare what the outside looks like. I can't turn my camera around, but if I could, my outside, basically I see a chain link fence, some trees, and it looks like it's raining with a whole lot of overcast. What's it like over by you, Janelle, right now? What is the difference from Markham, Vaughan, and Thornhill? Like, is Markham all of Vaughan? She lives in North Toronto, and I'm trying to figure, when people say I live in Markham, do you live in Vaughan? Is that the same thing?
Well, Vaughan, they're all considered a part of York region. So Vaughan, Northern Toronto. So actually, I don't know if Vaughan's included, but Markham, Richmond Hill.
Yeah, we're gonna have internet.
All those places are considered a part of the York region. So I'm in York region. It's usually a little bit chillier out here. Right now, it's pretty overcast. It doesn't seem as though the sun exists, and it's pretty windy. So apparently we're supposed to go up to 17, 18 this weekend, and it's supposed to be sunny. So I am saying all my prayers, and I'm lighting candles, I'm saging and everything to make sure that actually happens.
What's kind of cool? I mentioned yesterday, from all this quarantine stuff, I was reading yesterday that the largest portion of our deficiency in our ozone layer has healed itself.
That's amazing.
A million square kilometers over the Arctic is now healed. I mean, I don't know if it's a coincidence to everybody, to a lot of industry being closed down and the social distancing, but I mean, I think we're seeing a couple silver linings to all of this. I mean, unfortunately, we're not in the same position as Brian, where this guy gets to be stuck at home next to a lake, a beautiful,
right.
The guy's in the mountains. It's I watch this guy's Instagram every day. and I'm seeing him, he's playing his guitar and life looks awesome. And there's like sun everywhere and mountains everywhere. And I'm sitting here and I'm like picking up my dog's shit.
Yeah.
And
trees,
like, highlight.
Lots of trees, the lake. It was 75 degrees yesterday. It was the nicest day of the year so far. Blue sky. The lake is glass. Yeah. But I will say, this might make you feel better, Dr. Ira, is we waited for Miracle March to happen. Miracle March happened, which is we get a lot of snow in March as skiers, right? And the weekend we got 4 to 6 feet. The ski resort's closed for COVID-19. We at least thought that. Yeah.
You got 4 to 6 feet in March?
Yeah, that's what we call a miracle March. January, February was very, very dry. December came out of the gates cranking. And then, we didn't know the seriousness of COVID-19. So we thought the gondolas and the trams that are, close proximity of space for people, we thought those would at least close. And then they closed all the ski resorts starting in Colorado, and then it made its way over to California. So that Miracle March that happened is the one that none of us got to ski beautiful Squaw Valley, you would say. So
check this out. So the week I came back from Chatter Creek, I was out at Chatter Creek doing the doing a cat ski trip. I started off at Kicking Horse and then went over to Chatter Creek. And I actually I'm taking off next year because my knee just can't handle it. My whole body basically is falling apart. But the day we flew, you have to take a helicopter into the backcountry to get there, and then you're at this like chalet for 3 days or 4 days, and then you come back. So the day we came back, which was on the 14th, I think 13th of March, there was another group coming in, and we just transitioned from the helipad into this, like I came out. There was a couple birds that went that day. They went in. They had a guy on that plane or on that bird that was COVID positive, and and it's pretty much a closed environment when you're up there. There's 30 people that basically can get in and out, and that's it. You can't get in and out of this resort. There's 30 people that stay there. Well, it's not a resort, the chalet, and they had a guy that was COVID positive. And so within 2 days, he became super symptomatic, and they had to shut down the whole place. And then like 7 of the employees, everybody sort of got it. They all survived, which is good, and which I guess is good. But yeah, that happened the day we came back. And the day I flew back, all the resorts, BC basically closed shop. So, I mean, hey, listen, at least you got some of a ski season. You get 4 to 6 feet in March. I'm coming.
Well, that was one storm, one big storm. Yeah,
what?
Not just the month, but yeah, it kept snowing.
Crazy. 4 to 6 feet in just one go. Wow.
Yeah, when it snows here in the Sierras, it snows.
Okay, what else is happening with you, Janelle? Anything fun in your life? How's your kids? I see that you're taking photos. What's happening with your son?
He's still, school's still closed and still trying to keep him busy. So that's been task numero uno. But I've been tuning into, I don't know if anybody else is watching, but on 420, Netflix launched Cooked with Cannabis, cannabis cooking show. So I've been trying to catch up on that, which has been pretty interesting thus far because I'm familiar with cooking with cannabis, but seeing like actual chefs do all these techniques and these really extravagant types of food with cannabis, it's like blowing my mind, and I'm like ready to take a class.
What's cool about that is I think it was Lester interviewed the director of that on Weed Talks. Derek, I think I'm right. You're in the background. He's going to say, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm right.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, it was the chef from the third show.
Yeah, and so you could check that out on the Cannabis Wiki site. Eventually, anyways, you'll see on Weed Talks. You'll see him
coming out on Friday.
All right, you'll see it on Friday. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And he got pretty deep, and they went into like what, what motivated her to do the show and all that stuff. And that's pretty cool. So yeah, so you've just been sitting at home watching Netflix like the rest of us. I mean, I've been working a little bit here and there. Do you watch? Honestly, I got into this new show. You guys are gonna laugh at it, but it's really funny. The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. All right. Have you watched this show? It is the funniest fucking show you could like. It's about this Jewish woman in like 1950s who's married and her husband leaves her, and then they become friends still or whatever, and she becomes a stand-up comic. And she's like, and she's got a potty mouth, and she's funny and she's witty. Honestly, it's the funniest show. But I mean, I guess you kind of have to understand like Jewish humor a little bit. But yeah. It so teaches you about like the funniest shit that happens within the Jewish culture. Anyway, it's funny. I watch it. I just big up Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I can't believe I said that, but you got to watch it. It is really funny. Anyway. All right. So Brian. Yes, sir. Aside from living in such an awesome place, which like I wish I was there, we've had discussions in the past. I mean, the last time I think I saw you though was when I was in California, and we had the Cannabis retreat, which we haven't done in quite some time. It'd be great to just come out there and hang out. And definitely, I'm coming out next March. Hopefully, I can get out before that, if they open up our airlines and our borders. And actually, the first time I met you was at the Emerald Cup. Was Emerald Cup? Was it the Emerald Cup? No, Emerald Cup. It was Cannabis at Joshua Tree. No, it was before that, because I came out to you guys. No, you're absolutely correct. It was the Emerald Exchange. Emerald Exchange, right? Because Emerald Cup is here. Yeah. Sarah brought you by our booth, and we were packing up, and it was a quick hello, quick exchange, and then I believe Cannabis retreat in Joshua Tree was like a month later. Yeah, it was August, and then J Tree was in September, which was amazing. That was a fun time. That was, I think, one of like, for me, it was, that was one of the best experiences I had in a very long time. Very grounding for me. Mm-hmm. So, and you, when I met you, you had just opened, or you had already, you've been in the cannabis industry for so long in California. Yeah. And you were just transitioning into sort of, I guess, waiting for the legal market to open up. Mm-hmm. And you had started a company called Medicine Box, mm-hmm. which is I mean, great name. Yeah. Many different facets of the cannabis industry. I mean, I started growing indoor in the traditional Prop 215 market in 2009 in Oakland. And then I got into infused products and Prop 215 just around beginning of 2016. And that's when I was really starting to conceptualize Medicine Box and what the brand represented, its values, its ethos, and didn't really know where it was going, but I knew kind of where I wanted to go, right? If that makes sense. And I wanted to step out of the traditional marketplace, or the underground, or some people know it as the black market. We call it the legacy market now. Legacy market, but I'm very grateful for that journey, because it really gave me the opportunity to have a deep connection to the culture and the community, which is one of our 7 pillars of the brand is community. And that's the OG cannabis community that's composed of the cultural and social dynamics of, NorCal cannabis roots. And and then waited for, when I met you, I think that was 2017, regulations really weren't quite out yet. And so the last couple of years have been navigating the labyrinth of the good old California Prop 64 regulatory framework. And now in 2020, a lot has transpired, a lot has manifested, and still at it, still evolving, and still digging my heels in. So take me back to, 2015. You were just in the process of transitioning. I'm assuming you've used cannabis your whole life. Have you been a cannabis proponent your whole life, and then you transitioned into it, and then you transitioned into the growing or into the business aspect of it? What happened?
I grew up in New Hampshire in the 80s and 90s and went to University of Vermont, and we smoked kind bud back then, and I remember having some heart-to-hearts with my dad, and he was in the service in Spain in the early 70s, and he used to smuggle hash from Morocco to the naval ship. So it kind of was like in my DNA a little bit. And, but I never was like the stoner type. I didn't get into a stoner phase. It was just a here and there thing. And, then, fast forward, through college, living in Tahoe for a few years, I moved to the Bay Area in 2008, and I went on a drive with some friends to Oakland. Right place, wrong time, or the wrong place, the right time. And I didn't know what we were doing. We looked at a warehouse space, and turns out they were going to lease it to build a indoor grow facility. And they didn't have any money. I did, in the form of unused, credit cards, and I financed the grow operation with $60,000 of credit cards, and we paid it off in 2 years. And that's what really set me off to the races, and realized that, this had some business, opportunities. And at that time, though, it was more to supplement my income for my party habit and my skiing habit and my travel habit. And I never thought I would really get super granular into the medicinal wellness aspects of cannabis, which has brought me to where I'm at today. But, that's how we evolve in life. And I really think, the spirit of the cannabis plant really reveals more about, the more we work with it, the more it reveals more about ourselves. And that revelation about ourselves is what we can package up and put out there into the world. And that's what I'm really always constantly trying to do with the messaging of the brand and then the products we make to get out there.
Do you think that your ethos, your personal ethos, and your personal journey is what created those 7 pillars? What are the 7 pillars that you're talking about?
Yeah,
and how did they come about?
Yeah, medicine box is metaphorical for, your box of medicine, like the spiritual tools, the medicinal tools that are laid at your feet that you use, every day to create, sovereignty in your health and happiness. And that's really what helped me design, medicine box. I thought of, and I'm in recovery. So in the 12-step program, we always use, your toolbox. What's in your toolbox today to get through today, and it kind of, that kept boggling around in my mind when I'm, running or skiing, and medicine box came to be. And it was really built around this grand vision that the majority of humans on the planet would replace the traditional contents of their medicine cabinets with a, cannabis health and wellness supplement or plant medicine. That's the Advil, Motrin, Ambien, Prozac, opiates, those things. And that's what, I based the vision on. And then I started to look around at my life, and, I was really getting into mindfulness with John Kabat-Zinn, and, nature, as is a big part of my life. Music, food, community, collaboration, and recovery. And those are the 7 pillars. And then cannabis is this evolving medium that really just weaves it all together. And that's the messaging of Medicine Box. So when we develop products, we look through each one of those pillars lenses, and how can we develop a product to really fortify those pillars. And that's how we go about building products and messaging. So
So you use cannabis as a form. You mentioned their recovery, and you're in recovery. You know what I really appreciate throughout my journey with cannabis is the way that cannabis can be used in recovery.
Mhm.
And I'm not an abstinence, a full abstinence physician who believes you have to stay away from everything, and that's, I don't actually think that works. But that is, you mentioned the 12. You mentioned a whole bunch of things there that I have a bunch of questions on. This 12,
Yeah.
the 12-step program is an abstinence-based program,
Mhm.
but you use cannabis as a form of recovery.
Yeah.
You know, actually, and in your recovery program. So a couple questions. I mean, the first question is, you know, how did you come from, where were you that brought you to cannabis into your recovery? You know, what was that life journey like when you weren't, and how was that addiction? Was that you were moving? I'm assuming you were moving around a lot because your father's in the military, and stability of that kind of sucks. And then, you know, you had this party life that you mentioned. And is that how you got into addiction, or what happened?
Yeah. Well, my dad wasn't in the military. He was way before I was born. These are just stories that he told me about when he was, 22. But, what got me into using cannabis in recovery. So, at 2012, I literally skidded, since I was, I'd say 14 years old, addicted to alcohol and cocaine and, just some really gnarly substances. And I found myself, and it just kept evolving as recovery does. Addiction, right, evolves into addiction, recovery. You get to certain places, and I started to question why it was okay for people in recovery to be on Wellbutrin and Prozac and opiates and other benzos and such, and why cannabis was deemed this drug, because it's illegal. It's a Schedule 1. But that's what helped me to start formalizing these ideas in my head about medicine box. And at that time, I was experiencing really high highs and low lows from the dependency issues that I had, and I wasn't really quite in that spiritual awakened place that the 12 steps is really based on. And my physician prescribed me 10 milligrams of Prozac. And I say, thank you, Pfizer. Thank you, Prozac, because it really helped me be able to design the plant medicine that we design to work more effectively than an SSRI, or really kind of mimic what an SSRI does, which is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. And that's, again, that was one of those other level up, like, okay, people need to have less dependency on pills and more of a relationship with plants. And again, that's what I started to put into medicine box. And
was there anybody in your, I mean, I don't want to break the anonymity either, but your support system in recovery during the 12-step program, if you're going to these meetings, everybody there is gung-ho about abstinence. And you're a guy that comes in and says, well, hold on a second, why is it okay to use Wellbutrin and all the other antidepressants and anticonvulsants and all the other benzodiazepines that kill people more than even cocaine does, by the way? Why is that okay? Like, did you have any pushback there? Did you have support?
Well, the thing is with the 12 steps is you just don't, you don't bring any of that up. The only requirement is a desire to stop drinking and using, so that's where it gets confrontational.
But you need to have a sponsor.
Yeah. And, a sponsor and all of that. But the other kind of boom hit in the face was the mentor that I met during that journey in 2015, Michael Hollister. He passed away in the strawberry full moon of 2018. He's our spiritual advisor to Medicine Box. I still make decisions based on the
I remember you telling me about him. I didn't know he died.
Yeah, in 2018 on the full moon. We started our journey on the new moon of 2015, and every new moon and full moon we'd have phone calls. And it turns out that he was also in recovery, right? And one day he said, "Brother Brian, you and I aren't that much different, right?" And he's like, "We're going to get you off Prozac." And we used the medicine that I was making and that he helped kind of oversee, and then another high CBD to THC ratio, 34-1, with a terpene infusion. And we transitioned myself off of Prozac within 3 months.
Wow.
And I actually, sidebar here, but I just had a consult with a kid in Vermont that's on Prozac, and he has our tincture, and I'm using the same program that I used with that my mentor used with me. And I'm not a doctor, disclaimer. I'm not a health practitioner,
right.
but I know it works, and that's.
So you're a healer.
That's what I like to do to pay it forward, and so through recovery, through taking Prozac, through growing cannabis, through understanding cannabis, jumping into a mindfulness routine, getting really, really, really into a non-negotiable meditation practice was all kind of happening at the same time. And like,
did you find those things useful for you? What tools did you use at that time to, through recovery? There's so many people, even that I see in my clinics and that listen to this, that are suffering from recovery, suffering from addiction, and they don't have a process. What it sounds like to me is that you've developed a process that wasn't just based on cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
Cannabis, you were able to somehow figure out how to use cannabis as an alternative by seeing these traditional pharmaceuticals, but then you also had a process,
and that process is very grounded in routines and rituals. And I think when you're an addict, you have a lot of time on your hands, and you have to fill that empty time and the emptiness within yourself with something that is going to temporarily make you feel better or fix something or not feel anything. And when you remove the drugs and the alcohol from the person, guess what you're left with? Yourself. You're left with the feelings. You're left with the emotions. You're left with the traumas. You're left with the negative feedback loop and thought processes and stories you keep telling yourself. And that's the journey that you go through. And that's the fine line when you're in recovery, because if anyone's listening out there that isn't an addict or knows someone that is, it is really where the rubber meets the road when you put the plug in the jug or stop using. You have to fill up that time with new behaviors that create new neural pathways. You have to make the changes to people, places, and things. You have to not go to the you don't go to I hear people that, I can still go to the bar, but I don't drink. Why do you even want to go to the bar?
Right.
What's the point? Why don't you go take a walk in the woods or learn how to meditate? So I learned Qigong. I learned a mindfulness practice. I got really into that. My meditation practice is absolutely 100% non-negotiable.
Every day?
Every day with the sunrise at 20 minutes a day. And if I can do 20 minutes at night, I call that my bookends of the day, because I live one day at a time in recovery. So I started to put all these other tools or medicines in my medicine box to bolster my recovery program, right? And even in the 12 steps, it's AA is not the only thing. NA is not the only thing.
Right.
So Reiki, massage. I go to acupuncture every Thursday, and on the weekends when I'm not, doing Skypes and, glued to my phone and my calendar, I use the time given to me for a positive, esteemable action. I'll ramp up my meditation to an hour, on Saturday and Sunday, clean out the cobwebs in my head from the week of just logistical, rational thinking. And that allows me to be a bit more creative. But
Right.
disclaimer, it took me a long time to get there. Lots of practice, lots of trial and error, right? Lots of figuring out what works for me. And that might not work for Ira, you know? It might not work for you, Janelle. It's what works for me.
You said something interesting earlier where you said that, you know, kind of like your experience with Prozac and other medications kind of helped you with developing some of your products. So is that like a part of the process for Medicine Box, that you use your experiences to develop the product lines?
Yeah, thanks for circling back on that, because that's a big one. Is what makes our products really unique. I like to say we develop mindful medicine through the wisdom of cannabis and ancient wisdom blended with modern science and culture to create socially and environmentally responsible business platforms. So looking through all those lenses of the 7 pillars and looking at and then choosing a specific practical lifestyle solution. So for example, the tincture I've been talking about, or the formulation, it's called Equanimity Balance in all things, mind, body, soul, remaining cool, calm, and collected. But what helps create balance, right? Or homeostasis. And as we all know in science, and Ira, I've seen him talk about this many, many times, is the endocannabinoid system is what helps regulate our homeostasis and our central nervous system. So looking at a variety of ancient wisdom or herbs, very practical herbs: chamomile, valerian, lemon balm, catnip, skullcap, licorice, hawthorn berry. We get B6 and tryptophan from another plant source, banana peel actually, and we blend all that together with individual extraction processes. And then the cannabis we use is a specific cultivar that grows really well in the Grass Valley, Nevada County region, and that is high in it's an indica hybrid, so it's derived from the original Afghani indica landrace. So indica, very sedating, but it's also the myrcene in there, and then a little bit of CBN that oxidizes from the THC. So now when you put all that together in a formulation, you have a really potent formulation, and it's all those herbs are targeting the central nervous system. Skullcap and valerian hit the same receptors as benzodiazepines, right? THC that's in that whole plant extract. Ira and I talk about this, the key in the lock system. The THC isn't there to get you high. It's actually, I like to think of it as the jumper cable to your CB1 receptor. It's there to as an activator, antagonist, to unlock your CB1, so all those other plant compounds can get in there and target that nervous system. Now we're building more serotonin, right? The B6 and the tryptophan our bodies don't produce, or tryptophan, one of 23.
Tryptophan, yeah, it's tryptophan that our body needs.
One of 23 essential amino acids that has been bred out of our food systems over the last 100 years. So if you look at that and look at the rise in depression, there's a direct correlation to it. So building serotonin is really what we're going for. More serotonin, less stress. More serotonin, easier to regulate. More serotonin, homeostasis. Prozac, and I don't want to get super into the science behind it because I have a doctor here.
It's all right. You seem to know,
but,
you know more about that than I do.
But I'm
still learning from you, and that's amazing.
As my mentor Michael would always say, he's like, we're all students in the classroom, Brian.
Yeah.
So we're all students here, but I look at Prozac as it's a reuptake inhibitor. So it's just working with, if you have 3 lonely serotonin molecules in your brain, Prozac is there to surge those 3 molecules so they don't get reuptake in between the synapses. I'm over here with this plant medicine and all these herbs. I want to build more serotonin. I want more serotonin in my synapses to to play
You're
with.
trying to produce it. We're the production.
I'm trying to produce it. The production.
Yeah.
I'm not here trying to jumpstart my car over and over and over again when I can change the spark plugs. So
Yeah.
that's
I like that.
that's really where that practical lifestyle solution, anxiety, depression, and then sleep. So when I sleep, that tryptophan's converting into serotonin. Our serotonin regulates our melatonin or our circadian rhythm, sleep-wake cycle. And those are the links in the chain that I like to talk about, because a lot of folks I know, they're like, oh, I take melatonin. It's like, well, no, that's just like a Band-Aid. Why don't we start all the way back with B6, tryptophan, serotonin, and to get more melatonin in your body production.
It's such a great it's such a smart way of thinking, and it makes me actually look at Medicine Box slightly different now than I even did in the beginning. Medicine Box is really your toolbox.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, it's my own,
and it is, yeah, and it's a representation of who you are. But then it can be anybody else's medicine box. And now I mean, I get that name, but it's not just cannabis. I mean, it's the toolbox. It's like the medicine box. What's in this box? It's not just cannabis. It's meditation. It's the whole lifestyle. It's medicine box represents a lifestyle. I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
So, I never got it. I get it.
Cannabis is just the sliver. It's just the thing that just ties it all together, because it's always evolving. I like to say, I don't know anything. I don't know anything about cannabis. Cannabis knows more about me, and by what I was just able to explain to Janelle is my journey through cannabis and understanding it and experimenting with it, and then I keep adding to it, and that's the beautiful thing. And part of that addition, is in quarantine. If I could talk about this a little bit, using that time wisely, right? So from a recovery standpoint, I know a lot of people in recovery that are struggling because they don't know what to do with all this time. Right?
Yes.
And isolation is addiction, right? Connection is recovery. So what are we connected to? The Medicine Box team has really galvanized and have worked really cohesively. And when they listen to this, I just want to thank every single one of them. We have developed 3 new non-THC products, an e-commerce platform, because this medicine that we speak of needs to be available to, the 300 million people in the United States. And it's heartbreaking to me when people reach out to me. Where can I get your product?
It's not just your medicine. I'm thinking more and more. It's not just your medicine that needs to get out to 300 million people. It's Medicine Box that needs to get out to 300 million people, because but what I mean by that is it's not just the medicine. It's those 7 pillars. Medicine Box is recovery, right? Medicine Box is a journey into your own, whatever person's recovery, whatever that they're, whether it's a struggle or whether they're trying to improve their life. Medicine Box is that kit that's going to get them there. So it's more than just the medicine that needs to get out there. It's the whole way of thinking. It's that whole lifestyle that needs to get out of there. That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm hearing from you.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it, because we've been that right there is something that I've been developing, and then my team has really been taking it and helping to fine tune it. We're putting those 7 pillars into some sort of PDF that can be available on a landing page. We're doing a lot of content distribution, 3 new products that don't have THC. And then Ira will have hours of conversation around this. But again, one of those revelations that the plant has revealed more about me. I was last year at this time, CBD isolate, hell no, I'm not stepping anywhere near that part of the industry because I'm a whole plant person. Here comes CBG. Oh, CBN. Oh, CBC. I started learning about all these new cannabinoids, deep diving into CBG. Oh, it shows, it can mitigate Crohn's disease. And
it's doing really good.
IBS and gut health. My mom has IBS. 45 million people, 15% of the US population have IBS. I think it's the most widely spread illness or disease in the world. So we brought back an old formulation from the Prop 215 days called Happy Belly, added some CBG and some CBD, no THC, some cinnamon, some stinging nettle, some reishi mushroom, some hemp, olive, fractionated coconut oil, fennel, grapeseed, chamomile, omega-3, citric acid, and some lovely saffron to really just harmonize those ingredients.
Hold on, and that's all in one. Is this a tincture? Is this
that's
a pill?
It's a formulation. We like to call it a liquid soft gel. I really wanted to make it into a soft gel, and my chief scientist, Dr. Raphael, and I were going like this. So it's
I lost you there a second. What do you call it?
It's a tincture formulation, but we're calling, it's the dose is 0.5 milliliters, which is pretty standard for soft gel. So we're calling it a liquid soft gel, and it gets into your system a lot faster.
Is it a soft gel?
No, it's not a soft gel. It's in tincture form. Right here.
So how do you call it a soft gel if it's a liquid soft gel? What the fuck's that mean?
It's the liquid without the gel.
It's a liquid non-soft gel.
That's exactly. So we'll be launching that product June 1st on a direct-to-consumer e-commerce platform, and like you said, it's getting Medicine Box out there to the world and not being limited in the California THC marketplace. So in quarantine with all this time, then there's not enough time in the day. In the last 45 days, we've pushed really hard to get this, and thinking about the human at the other end of the supply chain, empathizing with our consumer, that a lot of people are going to be jobless, and the real symptom or disease that we're trying to alleviate or bring some relief to is fear. Right? A lot of people are in fear right now. Economic insecurity, health, death, what's next, the unknown. Not everyone thrives in the unknown, and that's part of what Medicine Box is.
I want to bring you back a second. You were talking about what you would tell somebody who's going through addiction right now, and they're in a spot. We're sitting in quarantine, and not everybody has is lucky enough to have a lake near them and can just go outside and as we're talking about Medicine Box being this whole, I actually have never. The medicine you are describing doesn't exist. Okay, I'll just tell you that. I know a lot of brands. I've heard a ton of brands. I've never heard of anything quite like what you're doing, and which is why one of the major reasons I wanted to have you here, aside from helping people through this quarantine thing, is your medicine can help a lot of people, and I can't wait to get my hands on that. On your hemp tincture that you're just talking about, and you could see how you're trying to treat the whole person and not just a little part of them. So what are you just to bring you back around to what you were saying, what would you tell somebody who's sitting at home now that has all this time where they were able to fill that up with other things and they're suffering from addiction at this moment in time?
That's a good question. You have to find ways to get out of self, right? When we're isolating, it's easy to go up in your brain and then follow the rabbit hole of thoughts down into the past and then worry about the future, and it takes us away from the present. That's why we took drugs and alcohol, to get rid of all that. And the most simple thing you can do is pick up the phone and call someone. That's that.
Good point.
Immediately when you pick up the phone and you just say, "Hi, Ira, how are you?" That's tough for someone, and that's isolating. You know, but that is showing humility because you are able to take the action to get out of your big fat fucking head. Excuse my language.
No,
But,
you can use that
you
language
know,
here.
but that's it, you know, or saying, I need help. Those 3 words.
Right.
I need help, surrender, or I just want someone to talk to, right? Or, you know, taking a walk, and I understand not many people are able to even leave, and that's tough. But, you know, nourishing food, water, you know, like some of the simple tactics that I learned, I didn't know what self-care was 8 years ago. You know, my sponsor was like, Brian, go home and make yourself a good meal and take a bath and get a good night's sleep. I didn't know what that was.
Right.
You know, but some things like that, prayer, you know, is a huge part of my life as well. And when that's, you know, directly linked.
Who are you praying to?
I pray to, you know.
Sorry, I know. I
pray to.
I lost
the
you
universe.
there a second. You know, see, God did that on purpose. As I asked you that. One sec, we're getting back into it. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, because like, I mean, this is totally off topic, but like,
I pray to God.
Will you pray to? You do?
Yeah, I pray to
believe in
God. I believe that there is a much higher level of consciousness at work than just my tiny fleck of existence in this universe. And once I was able to connect to that, I realized that my tiny little problems don't mean a damn thing. They really don't.
So I mean, I know the Pentagon released those 3 videos of flying saucers. You know, I have this trouble, man, when we start talking about God, and maybe there's a higher you call it's such a patriarchy of masculinity when you say this word God. You know, maybe nature, maybe like a higher being. You know, and how did you deal with that? Hold on. How did you deal with that, even in the 12 step? Because the first thing is to recognize there's something superior to yourself just to get into this fucking little 12 step thing. And yeah, so you're telling me you pray to God. Like I came from that whole world. So
God,
like,
well, I know you did. We've had conversations about
I know.
that.
I know.
God, as I understand it, right? It's, you know, when I think, if I had to really say, it's the trees I'm looking at, the lake I'm looking at, there's a skylight right here, and birds fly over my house, sometimes bald eagles, and I see the shadows go by. That's God. Real quick. They're blocking the sun and there's a little shadow. That's God. You know, the fact that I'm able to, you know, turn my tap water on and drink really delicious water out of the tap here in the mountains, you know, that to me is God. I think all of us are messengers of God. We all talk through, you know, we're conduits from, you know, something from a higher perspective. And nature, I'd say nature is my understanding of God or the universe.
All right, well, if I were like, God damn it. No, not that God. It's a different God.
Different God.
Different. All right. Not that.
So Ira,
I'm sorry. Yeah.
You know, I think you'll appreciate this. So when I said ancient wisdom blended with modern science.
Yeah, I like
part of that ancient wisdom comes from our scientist, Dr. Raphael. He's Israeli. He's a PhD plant scientist from Jerusalem, and he came over to California 3 years ago. But he often references the Old Testament to look for herbs and botanicals that are written in the Old Testament. That's part of that ancient wisdom. So, I don't know who wrote the Old Testament. But
I think over time. Listen, if we're going shit, we're gonna start. I'm gonna start offending every. I don't give a shit. Let's start offending.
We don't need to
every Orthodox rabbi that I know, and maybe priest. if you go back, aside from the God, right, according to ancient tradition, God wrote the first book, and then it was all like, given down through Moses, through all the other books. But over time, according to history, it was written at different periods of time. So, I mean, as a historical reference, there's definitely botanicals that are listed in there, some of which we don't have anymore, and some of which were used for healing. And so, and the anointing oils, like the 15 different oils and the 30 different oils they would bring in offerings. Yeah, I guess that's a good point. And so you definitely take a holistic approach to your medicine. The thought that you put into medicine box is like a full different consciousness than what we're used to here, which doesn't have, and for the industry in general. I've been working in the industry since 2010, or I guess, when did the industry start here? 2013 or whatever, whenever legalized stuff started happening. And nobody that I could think of really puts in that much thought into the consciousness, into the, I don't know if you call it, it's not social justice. It's like conscious social consciousness. How, and it probably hasn't always been roses. I mean, I remember you told me one story, and I'd love to hear it. Like before legalization, actually, I want to get into that. You had an apartment, you had that place in Oakland, and it was broken into. Yeah, what happened with that? I want to hear that story. I think that's important for people to know, and I think that helped shape what's going on.
In 2009, we got that and moved out of there the end of 2011. It was just getting pretty rough and tough around that neighborhood. But you may be thinking of 2017, where my farm in Grass Valley was raided by the good old sheriffs of Nevada County, who are very, have that prohibitionist mindset. And I was directly targeted by them for making, I gave my best JFK in a 2-minute public comment hearing in front of 300 people. And I put a bullseye on my back.
What did you say?
This was a meeting to really galvanize the community and bring us all together to create a sustainable cannabis ordinance, which we have now. But there was a lot of political advocacy happening at that time, a lot of prohibitionists that didn't want that to move forward. And in 2 minutes, it was all about, we're here to work with everyone. We're here to educate. I have real estate in this community. I have farms in this community. I spend my money locally. And 36 hours after that, sheriffs are pounding on my gate. And then 36 hours after that, another location was raided by 5 men in tactical SWAT gear carrying AR-15s, posing as authorities. And when I called the sheriffs to come protect and serve for a break-in on my property, they flipped the script on me, and they ended up raiding it even further and seized 343 pounds of marijuana that was going into the legal industry in 2018. This was in November, so we had another month to be able to transition that into the legal climate. And that is a case that is still pending right now. It's Brian Chaplin versus the county of Nevada, California. And the last update is we won 5 out of the 7 demurs. So it's moving forward. And if there's anything that comes out of it as far as policy change, so legal cannabis businesses we're deemed essential right now, but we should also be deemed as the local bakery, barbershop, salon, or restaurant. So that happened. Then my mentor died in 2018, and I mean, it's
So how did you keep? So how did you keep that social consciousness or awareness? How did you keep that at the forefront of your mind when you're dealing with shit like that? I mean, something that's really tough for me to deal with is, I've been under scrutiny by my college for almost a decade since starting this, and something that's really hard for me is to, and it's wearing on me, right? I'm tired, I'm exhausted, but I've never had, I've never been arrested. I've never had like the SWAT team at my door. I've had people take away my licenses. I've had to go to court. I've done a whole bunch of shit, but I've never had a gun in. I've never been had a gun in my face. You know what I mean? So how do you continue to do what you do, dealing with recovery, dealing with a business, dealing with guns in your face by the law and not the law, the opposite of the law. How do you manage to keep your head on and still believe in a fair exchange? Like I hear all these things in business. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
What is it that allows you to do that? Because that's so important.
That's a great question. I can make a joke out of it, but it's some say I'm crazy, but I'm just insane. I believe in what I'm doing.
Right.
It's simply that, and if you're going to have a business in cannabis or a cannabis business, or if you're even a consumer, I really think you have to be an advocate for the plant as well and what it stands for. And that's the risks that I'm willing to take, because I simply have a calling, right? I don't have a job or a career. It's a calling, and it's a passion of mine. And I'm also a Capricorn, and I think just my DNA is
you're stubborn.
I'm a stubborn goat. You always go after what you believe in. And since I was a kid, it's always, I wanted to play guitar. I started playing guitar. I wanted to go to UVM. I went to UVM. I wanted to move to Tahoe. I just have always been able to figure out ways to get to where to go.
Would you say that the advocacy aspect of your personality as it relates to cannabis is what motivated you to move from the legacy market into the legal market?
Absolutely. I wasn't feeling satiated with what I was doing any longer, and I was sick of looking over my shoulder, lying about what I did to people that didn't know me. And I really, from a very simple point, I wanted to be able to showcase with the world the things that I could not put on my resume.
Right.
Right? If that makes sense. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew I would be able to figure out how I was going to do it. And, I really believed in, the intrinsic properties of cannabis. And that's when I was learning about, terpenes and cannabinoids. And I was like, I don't want to just grow. I just don't want to grow a pound of cannabis anymore and put it in a bag. I want what's in there. And then I want to translate that to another human. And then I want that human to have a better life from it. So that's,
if you had, hold on, I'm going to interrupt you a sec there. If you had to tell somebody, there's a lot of people out there that are trying to transition from the legacy market into the adult use legal market. What would you say to them? How do they start doing that? How does somebody start that process? Where do they go? Like, do they just say, fuck it, today's the day, I'm going to apply for a license and here we go?
Yeah. Have you ever jumped off a cliff into water?
Yeah.
Have you ever gone up to that cliff and you look down at the water and you're like, I don't know if I should do this?
Yeah, right? Every time.
And the more you keep looking down and you say, I don't know if I want to do this, the more you start to chicken out.
Yes, 100%.
Or you just go up and you look down, you're like, that's not bad. You take a few steps back and you just jump off.
Right.
That's what you have to do. Because the more you question the direction you're going, the less chance you are going to have to make it. I learned that. I was bouncing in between both worlds until I was really like, there's things that kept happening that were signs saying you got to take the 2 steps back and get a running leap off the cliff, and then you just figure it out as you go along. But you really need to get clear up here and then in your heart, and get both of those things, both that heart, mind, wind horse working. And I wrote a blog years ago about the 4 corners of the industry, and where it used to be one homogenized industry. If you think of a box, or these boxes we're looking in right now, they're now divided into 4 corners. One is, the world I'm in. Like, I'm making the adaptation to move forward, a sustainable cannabis industry, the legalized market, whatever you want to call it. That's the way. There's group number 2 that is like, they kind of want to do it. They don't know how to. They want the good old days. They don't quite have the idea. They're in purgatory. Then there's corner number 3 that they're just like, I'm not doing this. I'm staying I'm traditional market for life, right? I'm going to do it until someone tells me to stop. And then group number 4 is, you know what? Fuck this. I'm over it all. Cashing out, and I'm moving, right? Or I'm going to open a coffee shop, or I'm going to consult, right? So that's what I started to see happen the last few years, and it's gotten a lot more clear, and there's even subgenres of that. So, I've kind of transitioned through all 4 of those, and landed on number 1.
What's kind of crazy is, like, you nailed it. I was actually heading towards that box number 4, saying fuck it, I'm exhausted, until actually I came upon Cannabis Wiki, because that really reinvigorated my love for cannabis in the industry, and it was something fresh and unique. And I was like, I'm exhausted. This, like, the love-hate relationship of doing this for the past decade and building something from nothing and creating this medical industry, and then just constantly always being pushed down and pulled up, and it was like you're being stretched by those horses, like Braveheart at the end, like where he's getting fucking losing his limbs and shit. And so I was like, I get it. Those 4 corners are it. And I was like in that box. That's such a good way to explain it. So do you see the legal market as the future? Where do you see the future? I know that Medicine Box is there, and we've spoken about how you're transitioning into that. And while you have, do you see that as the only sustainable future? I know it's putting you on the spot asking that question, but
I see this as just a stepping off point. The industry is about 37 seconds old, and I think there's a resurgence of psychedelics and other plant-based medicines, and if I had to predict the future, individualized plant-based therapies, I think is really where this is going to lead. I think the noise and the chatter of the recreational market, and I know we agree on this, Ira, it's like, cool, buy your pack of pre-rolls, awesome. Like, people have been smoking joints for thousands of years. Okay. Yeah. Like, cool, your flashy packaging. Great. That's noise, the big vape companies, Select Oil, all these companies. Cool. You got in, you went on the stock market. Big deal, noise, chatter. Are you helping people? That's where it's going to come down to. Are you helping people in cannabis? Once you're in Canada, you all did a great job up there, California, Colorado, Oregon, Washington, and the rest of the United States is trying to figure this out. I think once we do, we're going to start seeing, a domino effect, and, also combined with this rise of global consciousness. And that's what's going to cannabis will set the bar for the way we look at, mental health and medical treatment.
I think so. Actually, it's a really good point. I mean, even from a business standpoint, nobody will be able to take on the medicine of, pharma, whether cannabis becomes individual plant-based or whoever takes it over. Medicine is always going to be there. And I believe in the medicine of cannabis. And you're right. People have been smoking joints for thousands and thousands of years. And, there's nothing really new. But, what is new is what you've done. You've added, all of those, whatever fucking substances to this medicine. I can't rename. The only one I remember is saffron because it's expensive. That thing is super expensive. My wife is Persian. They love saffron. So that's new. That's innovative. That's medicine. And so I agree with you. I think that is the future still. That's a good point. And the rec market is still there. It's always been there. Yeah. It's just now coming out of the ground.
Oh, I can tell you this much. I mean, because I've been in this, a long-standing OG cannabis community. I'm gonna go, if I wanted to buy some flower to roll my own joints, which I don't, I would go see a friend of mine that's been growing for 10, 20, 30, 40 years that are growing their 6 plants legally under the California sun. That's where I'd get it from. I wouldn't go to a dispensary to get it.
Right.
It's just, but I'd go to the dispensary to buy the medicine that I'm talking about because it's specialized. And with that said, we are very misunderstood in the rec market in California, our product. Oh, you're just another tincture. Oh, your price per milligram of THC. It doesn't, it doesn't meet our standards. I'm like, yes, that's distillate and it's blended with like myrcene and it looks like it's a $15 product. Ours is somewhere but a price point $32 to $40 MSRP. But that doesn't make me give up. That actually makes me think, oh, you're onto something. You're actually building your own niche out, and people will catch on. And I've been told our product's a little maybe ahead of its time. But again, this is stuff that's been passed down, open source, fair trade for thousands of years, right? It's the same thing. Is it a joint or, real herbal medicine? Herbalists will tell you the same thing. Medicine makers that are up in the Northern California hills, the amount of intellectual property that are in, under a barn roof or in a shed, it's astonishing.
Yeah.
Right. Up in the Emerald Circle triangle over there. Yeah, that's crazy. All those things just sort of make you think. It actually, I'm glad we had this conversation too, because it sort of, again, every time I speak to you, I get like encouraged again that okay, this is the right path. And for a long time since legalization and saying, oh man, is the job done? And now what? And a whole bunch of us from the beginning are sitting there saying, well, what do we do now? Like, I don't feel fulfilled yet. I don't feel like we've done what we've needed to do, but it's here now and I don't know what else to do. And well, you give me hope for the future that there's people like yourself out there who are pushing the boundaries within the boundaries that already exist. Like within the medicine, you're pushing the boundaries of the medicine and creating these formulations. And I really hope that medicine box takes off. It's such an amazing brand. And not just a brand, it's a lifestyle. And that lifestyle, I think, is what people need to understand, especially if you're suffering or have suffered. You're either in recovery, suffering addiction, mental health, or lifestyle in general, and want to lead that peaceful warrior, like stoic mindset. That medicine box represents all of those things. So my last question then to you is, if your today's self had to, give some advice to your past self, seeing how far you've come from both addiction and the legacy market into where you are today in recovery, what would you say?
Yo, Brian, you're being way too fucking hard on yourself, man. Lighten up. You're just a human being trying to make it through this world with everyone else. Don't be so hard on yourself. Everyone, don't be hard on yourself.
Mm.
Give yourself a pat on the back. Celebrate the mini triumphs. Make your bed in the morning. That's a mini triumph.
It is.
Simple as that.
Fuck. Yeah,
if I only knew that back then.
It's all the negativity. The negativity seems to overcome the positives sometimes in our lives, because those are the things we harbor on and try to improve on, and we don't think enough about the small wins. So yeah, that's awesome. Thanks so much for being here, bro. I had
Dude,
again, you always bring that up. Yeah, you always bring it out of me. I love it, and I always want to have these conversations. I'm gonna call you up when I'm feeling shitty.
Yeah. Well, let's not let all that time go by. I mean, we Instagram and whatnot, but we have each other's contacts. We should just get on calls. Just schedule calls. I'm going to send you my calendar. That's what I do now. I have a calendar now. I send to people, and they find slots. So find a slot, and we'll just have chats.
I'll send it to my assistant, who will slot in your calendar, and we're fucking all good.
Perfect.
Oh, thank you so much. Don't hang up. We've got the news coming at you right now. Janelle, now that we're feeling, do you feel so peaceful right now?
Yeah, I feel pretty fun.
I feel like when I'm done, I'm going to go fucking meditate. It's pouring rain outside, but I'm still going to go for a walk in the rain and head out to the back. I don't care right now. Right now, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give myself that little reward. Why not?
You should.
Stop work for 5 minutes and do it. No, don't you feel like that?
Yeah, I do. It was very enlightening.
Yeah, I totally was. So what's happening in the news?
So a nightclub, so a property in Northampton had a nightclub in it. The landlord had the tenants who owned the club, they vacated at the end of March.
Okay.
So when he went back to check on the property sometime this month in April, somebody had broken in and actually transformed the vacant nightclub into a grow op.
That's crazy.
Really?
While it was on lockdown?
He walks in and he immediately notices that the place is really, really hot. So he's like, what's going on here? And he goes down and he sees all the lights and the whole setup. And he immediately gets freaked out because he's like, holy crap, this is some next level stuff. So he runs out of the building and calls the police because he's like, I don't want to get into a war with anybody. So when the police searched the building, they realized that the people that broke in had barricaded most of the entrances and the exits to the building, and that they had mattresses. So they were literally living in there. So the landlord was actually pretty lucky because he happened to enter at a time when they weren't actually there.
I'd keep it. I'd be like, yeah, sure, that's my building. You just leave everything as you see it. Out you go. How many plants they have? Was it all like the whole place or just the...
That's innovative.
It is.
It seemed like it was the whole place, but the landlord's really upset because he said they did so much damage to the venue.
Yeah, it's growing cannabis can cause some damage. That's pretty crazy.
Drilling holes in walls and ceilings, and let's put the fan here and knock this wall down. And
I'll take the lights.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. Yeah, what else you got?
So in Barcelona, Spain, the FC Barcelona soccer team, they are actually going to be, for the first time in history, allowing someone to buy, or a brand to buy, the naming rights to the stadium. They're doing this in an effort to raise money to help the local community recover from COVID-19. Now, what's interesting about this is that Mike Tyson's cannabis brand, Swiss X, expressed an interest in actually in buying those rights to name the stadium to be the Swiss X Stadium. So David Alki, his business partner, has actually made statements saying that they're going to throw their hat in the ring, and that he wants to set it up that the concession stands at the soccer stadium actually sells cannabis wellness products.
I know in Canada, you're not even allowed to you can't even say a name and advertise. It doesn't work. Do you think that, I mean, that would be crazy if they allowed that to happen. And I guess, you got a brand that surrounds that, you're going to do pretty good. I'm kind of impressed that he went out on a limb and did the cannabis thing and came out, especially when sport is, cannabis in sport was such a, taboo thing to talk about. There are a lot of guys doing it now and talking about it. Remember in 2017 when we were in Joshua Tree, was it 2018? It was maybe just or 2017, I think, when we were in Joshua Tree, and it was just that September, because it was September 2017, because that's when WADA took CBD off the banned substance list, and since that time, there's been cannabis in sport has come out pretty heavy. And a lot of proponents of it. And so I actually think Mike Tyson has done a wonderful job and done a really good job of getting the brand. Like, yeah, he's got his own brand, but he's also promoting health and wellness. That's pretty cool for, for somebody of his fit, sporting stature to do. So I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. And if they are able to, one, get to name the stadium, or even
fucking awesome
further, and actually have cannabis wellness products available in the concession stands, it will be a game changer worldwide.
Amazing. Like, that'd be pretty cool. All right, what's that? What else you got? Anything fun?
Very interesting one here.
All right.
So, Ontario Provincial Police Commissioner Julian Fantino is resigning from Aleafia.
Oh, Fantino's resigning. By the way, so Brian, one of the things that's happened here in the last 2 years, 3 years, maybe a little more, is that all the ex-police chiefs, everybody that was so dead against this shit for so long, basically jumped in the ring, and everybody got into the cannabis space, every one of them. Fantino, police chief, McCormick's daughter. I actually worked with that company for a while. It's a good company. All of these, anybody in law enforcement, they've all jumped into the ring, whether they're politicians or not. They were all dead against it a decade ago. All of a sudden, boom, everybody's in. Now, because it's legal, who knows? But anyway, so he's resigned from Aleafia. I didn't know that.
He's resigning as of May, so Friday. So famously, like you're mentioning, he's famous for his anti-legalization rhetoric.
Yeah, of course.
One of his most famous quotes was, "I see legalizing it or putting it in shops as trying to normalize narcotics."
Yeah.
And the truth is, there's nothing normal about it. So interesting that he said that in 2015 and then became.
Oh yeah, then founded Aleafia in 2017. 2 years later, it's funny what motivates people. I mean, clearly we know where there's some motivation for this thing. I just don't know the reasons behind why he's resigning.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. There's been no statements around the actual reasoning for it. I'm sure a lot of people are happy to see him step down, but the reality is he's probably still going to be profiting off of this.
For sure. Well, Aleafia is not a bad, I know the guys over at Aleafia, and I know their medical director, and I know they also own Emblem. Emblem is actually a pretty good licensed producer. They've got great cannabis. They're focused on medicine. And Mike Verbora is their medical director over at Aleafia. I had no idea that they, it was a big boys club at one point in time. And yeah, so we'll see what happens there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right. One more thing, and we got to get off the air because it's now.
It's a little bit of positive news. So,
I like positive news.
Cambridge, Massachusetts, they actually got the go-ahead from a judge to move ahead with bylaws that actually are giving priority to disadvantaged cannabis businesses. So what that means is people who are trying to transition from the illegal market to the legal market will actually get preference for licenses, etc. So a medical dispensary had actually tried to stop this particular ordinance and took them to court. And a judge said, no go, and they can proceed with the prioritizing of people from the illegal market.
Well, that's pretty cool. I wish they did that. Actually, I think that's such a great way. So you want to end a legacy market? I mean, that's all you got to do. You got to say, hey guys, we're going to let every one of you have a business. You in? That's all you got to do. Who wouldn't jump on that?
Yeah.
It's almost that easy. You want to end the legacy market. You say, here, guys, you don't have to pay the $6,000. We actually want you to come to this market. If you've been in business for more than 2 years, here's your thing. Go get a shingle, put it up, done. It'll end tomorrow.
Yeah.
Everybody would want into that. Most people, anyway.
Most people.
Most people, not everybody, right? Not everybody. There are some like that third pocket you said that there's no way in hell I'm going into that market. But I got to say, when it comes to dollars and cents, I bet you the dollars for the most people, most part, people are going to move into the recreational, legal adult use market if they had that opportunity, and the barriers to their entrance were taken away. Those barriers that keep people up.
What about money? What about money if they don't have the money? And what about if they have a criminal record for marijuana, of all things?
In Massachusetts, they're actually allowing you to do it even with the criminal record.
Ah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. So they're not judging you. If your criminal record is for selling marijuana, they're not barring you. Now, if your criminal record is for something else, you may see the doors closed. But if it's specifically for your involvement in the illegal market, you have a chance to enter the legal market.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's what we need to. That's what's needed. You need is practical people working in government, right? Because the practical person, the practical person is going to say, yeah, we get it. You guys have a record, blah, 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 blah. I'll tell you right now, like I mention Lee Whitley every time I'm on the air now, because this guy spent 14 years in prison for trafficking cannabis between the United States and Canada. And now he literally is giving hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars away in cannabis to people who need it. He gives it. He won't even like. He has a concentrate, sort of like a version of Rick Simpson oil. I don't want like an RS, sort of like an RSO, but his own version. And he's literally giving it away. A guy like this is literally giving it away. The practical thing to do is give a platform for this person to do that. Because there are people in need that can't afford it, and he's giving hundreds of thousands of dollars away. Now, do we have practical people in government? God, I don't. It's never easy. It's always easy for us on the outside to comment on what it's like when you're sitting in a committee and you have 10 people on the other side and you're one person saying no. You just need a practical person who's like, you need the Doug Fords of the world to say, yeah, listen, stay inside or you're going to die. Like he's a pretty practical guy. That's why I like what Doug Ford's doing for Ontario when it comes to this COVID stuff. All right, it's up to you. You want to go outside, you're not going to die. But what I mean. It's just super practical. So we need more people like that in government writing policy that have the ability to affect change. But anyway, Brian,
sir.
I'm super glad that you that we had this conversation. I think it's going to help a lot of people who are sitting at home and who who started off in the legacy market and have a business, are trying to transition or suffering from addiction and looking for mindfulness. And I always talk about mindful consumption, and all these concepts have come together from guys like Brian. That's where it all came together for me. And so, I want to thank you for being here, and hopefully we'll keep that discussion going. Janelle, as usual, it was awesome. And great banter, great discussions, guys. Hope to see you all again. All right, before we get off the air, who do you want to plug?
Let's plug medicinebox.green, and medicineboxwellness.com is the new e-commerce site. You can find me on Instagram at _Brian Chaplin. Medicine Box is at medicine_box. I'm also on LinkedIn too, and a variety of Facebook groups. And I want to plug my whole team out there. Thank you for doing the good work so I can come here and have compelling conversations with you too.
Awesome. Thanks. And hey guys, don't forget to check out cannabis.wiki, Cannabis Wiki, for all your news and your dispensary. Yeah, it's great. Cannabis Wiki is an awesome platform. It's got a cannabis dispensary on there, and you can dispensaries in the United States and Canada. You can find them on there. You can find all of our videos on there and all the latest news and updates. You'll all find that on Cannabis Wiki. And thanks to Derek for producing this as well. And you guys are awesome.